Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namaha Gukarastvandakaro Vai Rukarastvanivartakaha Andakara Nirodhitvat Gururitya Vidhiyate Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Bhadram Karnebhi Shrunuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashyemakshabhiryajatraha Sthirairangai Istuštuvagum Sastanubhi Vyashema Devahitan Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vriddhashravaha Swasti na Pusha Vishwavedaha Swasti na Starksho Arishtanemihi Swasti no Brihaspatir Dadhatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Athashvalayano Bhagavantam Parameshtinam Upasamapetyo Vacha Adhihi Bhagavo Brahma Vidyam Varishtam Sada Satpihi Sevyamananam Nirgudham Yaya Chirat Sarva Papam Vipohya Parat Param Purusham Yati Vidwan Tasmai Sahovacha Pitamahascha Shraddha Bhakti Dhyana Yoga Tavehi Na Karmana Na Prajaya Dhanena Tyage Naike Amritatvamana Parena Nakan Nihitan Guhayam Vibhrajate Yat Yatayo Vishanti Vedanta Vignam Sunischitartha Sannyasa Yoga Yataya Shuddha Sattva Aha Te Brahma Lokeshu Parantakale Paramritat Parimuchanti Sarve. So, we'll do the fourth verse today. I think we finished the analysis and learning of the third one last week. Na karmana na prajaya, etc. Vibhrajate yat yatayo vishanti. So we did that. So yeah, it's interesting that in the course of study, starting with Tattva Bodha and onwards, there is a kind of a sequence of various Upanishads that is taken up, and so the Kaivalya comes quite late in the process in that sense, because it is not the easiest ones to study. So sometimes it is overlooked in that sense. But I thought that when I made the decision to teach this after the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, it is primarily because of the book by Swami Viditatmananda. And so hopefully it would be useful for you to listen to the topics unfolded, and then also have a book to resort to go over the strengthening of those concepts for your own study. And so that's one of the reasons that I decided on Kaivalya Upanishad. So I hope you are resorting to that. So after the last class, I had mentioned that it would be good if you could go over some pages. I think it was 68 to 76, which was the third chapter. So going over this, One thing to see, to make a note of, is first of all, Swamiji has given a very good general introduction to the subject matter. And so that was on page 1 through 31. So I think, again, just going over that, if you haven't done it already, that would be good to do. Then the topic of the verses is important to note. So the first topic of the, which is the topic is given at the very top of the page, right here. So is approaching the teacher. So we talked about the need for students to be ready to learn. And so approaching the teacher included that segment of it. So that went from 31 to 57. Then we are going to have the 3 verses 2, 3 and 4 under the topic of sadhana and sadhya. And so please make a note of that. So this, what we are studying now, and we will hopefully complete it today, is from number 2 to number 4. We have done already number 2 and 3, of what would be called what is meant to be achieved. What are we trying to do? What is the end point of this study? And what are the means of achieving it? So that is the sadhana. And so I just want to make a point that since we are following the methodology of following a book, and Swami Vidyadhananda has done really a very thorough job. I mean, that's why he's such an important teacher, because besides the commentary and so on and so forth, his fundamentals of what the basics of Vedanta are well documented. And so it's good to go through all that. So verses number 2 to 4 exemplify the sadhana and the sadhya. Then we will see in the next chapter the contemplation upon the self and so on and so forth. We will look into that. But I just want to make a note of it, that please keep in mind the main topics of the verses. Because sometimes that gets lost in the process. You know, you get into the details of learning a verse, but the overall concept, why the verse is meant for and what does it explain, is sometimes lost. So be careful about it. So anyway, so today we are going to do the 4th verse, which is given on page 76. And my apologies to Larry. Larry, I have still not sent you this book, and I keep referring to the book per se. So please forgive me. I'll hopefully will remember to go to the post office and mail you this book. The rest of you should all have it. The 4th verse says, Vedanta Vignam Sunishchitarthaha Sannyasa Yoga Yataya Shuddha Sattvaha Te Brahmaloke Tu Parantakale Paramritaha Parimuchanti Sarvehe. Here's the mark. So let's look at the individual words, the sentence meaning, before we get into the explanation of the verse. So the first one is, as I'm just going through Swamiji's parsing of the sentences, of the words rather. Excuse me a second. So the first topic is Vedanta Vignana Sunishchitartha. The Vedanta Vignana means the knowledge given in the Upanishads. Vedanta means Upanishads. So Vedanta Vignana means Vijnanasya Vijnanam. Vedantasya Vijnanam. Or you can say Vedantena Vijnanam, by the Vedanta. So either one, it means the knowledge contained in the essence of the Vedanta. Sunishchitartha. Nishchita means to decide. It's called Nishchita. Nishchanoti. Ascertainment of something is called nishchita. Sunishchitartha. So the prefix su refers to very well ascertained. Very well ascertained. And so this is an important thing that has been given in value to. So what it means is that just some cursory knowledge of the subject matter is not fruitful. As we saw in the Brahma Sutra class also earlier. So this one has to keep in mind. And again, I think it goes back to this whole thing about paroksha jnanam versus aparoksha jnanam. And so I think that example, I think that's been it clarifies a lot of things for me, and I hope it does for you also. So paroksha jnanam means that you have a general sense of what it is, but you don't have an well ascertained knowledge of what it is. Example of that is that a person is approaching from a distance and you know that there is a human being approaching. You can even tell some aspects of the human being. You know, whether it is a woman or a man, whether it's a tall person or a short person. You could even tell from the skin color whether it is somebody who is light-skinned or dark-skinned, all those kinds of things. But until the person comes close enough for you to identify exactly who that is, your idea about that person does not create the same impression. So supposing you have a very close friend that you know very well, and you were not expecting that person to come, and you're sitting outside on your veranda, your porch, and you see a person approaching. So you know a lot about the general knowledge about the person, what it looks like. You see? And but the general knowledge about the person creates the following thoughts in you, which is there's a person approaching and he seems to be coming towards this house, and it seems to be walking. There's a number of things you're talking about, a number of things you know about it. You're walking, your clothing, and so on and so forth. But it was not enough to know until the person comes close, and then you identify the person as your friend that you know very well. You can imagine that your general thoughts about the person are now replaced by, oh, it's you, I didn't realize that. All of a sudden a flood of different thoughts come in. Your friendship, you were college mates together, all kinds of things happen from that point on. All in the switch between general knowledge and particular knowledge. This is really the meaning of Paroksha Jnanam and Aparoksha Jnanam. And so here, going back to this word called Sunishchitartha. So I thought I was going to explain all the meanings later, but since it just came up, I thought I would just clarify that. So there is a difference between Nishchitartha and Sunishchitartha. And by the way, another thing can be between Jnanam and Vignanam. So in both of these words, the clarity of the thought are emphasized. Both of these words means, instead of saying Vedanta Jnanam, so oftentimes the Jnana means general knowledge. You have an idea about Atma, Anatma, Panchakosha Viveka, etc., all those kinds of things, Drik, Drishya Viveka, and Samashti, Vyashti, the cosmos, all those kinds of things you are generally aware of. But it's very possible that it is only at the level of Jnanam, not Vijnana. And same thing in the second word, which is Sunishchitartha. So this thought has been strengthened by both the prefixes. One prefix is V, Vijnanam. And I think Swami Viditatmananda also explains this. So the prefix V means Vishesha Jnanam, a particular knowledge. The general knowledge gives you some ideas about what this Vastu is. But until you have the particular knowledge, it doesn't complete the job that this is my friend coming, not any other person coming. So you can imagine any other person coming means there is a person coming. And then you have to think about, why is he coming? Is he lost? Is he looking for someone? How my interaction going to be? I hope it's safe. All those kinds of things are there. But if it turns into this is my friend coming, who I know very well, there is a different flood of thoughts that come in. So this is the distinction between Jnanam and Vijnanam, and the same distinction between Nishchita Arthaha. Arthaha means the meaning, and Sunishchita Arthaha means well-ascertained meaning. And the well-ascertained meaning, so what it really means is that just like in the case of an approaching person, until you know exactly who that is, the results are totally different. If you don't know the person, then your ideas are in a different realm altogether. If you know the person, it's a different set of ideas in a different realm. So similarly here also, the study of Vedanta remains as a general topic, which is interesting and hopefully somewhat useful and so on, but nothing like if you are Vedanta Vignana Sunishchitartha. Then the clarity comes in. He says, oh my goodness, this is who I am. I cannot believe it. Different set of thoughts come in. No relationship. I'm just a human being. I'm trying to do some good. That's just like saying this is a person who's coming and so on. A lot of general knowledge is there. I'm a student and I'm engaged in the study of Vedanta, and I've got some good fellow students and I'm happy with what I'm studying, and now I'm getting some direction in my life. All those kinds of general things and so on. Not the sunishchitarthaha Vedanta Vignam. When that occurs, then all those thoughts turn into completely different, and that is exactly what our goal is. And here Swami Viditatmananda makes a very good statement. In fact, he says, where does it say that? Yeah, on page number 7 he says, this verse can be explained in 2 ways. One way is that it describes the aspirants or seekers. The other is that it describes the wisdom of the wise persons. In both ways, the verse is meaningful. So the first one is as a sadhana. When you describe the method of ascertaining something, you're describing sadhana. When you are describing what happens to you when you identify yourself as a totally free person, is this sadhya? It is what is the end result of it. So again, going back to that same example of the person approaching, there is a sudden shift. A sudden shift from a general knowledge but somewhat vague to something which clicks. So therefore, in relating to what Swami Viditatmananda is saying, that even as a general knowledge, because the general knowledge is also necessary for you to arrive at the particular knowledge. So that is the sadhana. But it is not until the Vishesha Jnanam, the particular knowledge comes in, that this is my friend, that friend who I know very well, does the sadhya achieved. You see what I'm saying? This is what I'm trying to clarify. Just on the point of Vedanta Vignana Sunishchitartha. And so this is kind of like a doubling up of this phenomena. I don't see that doubling up very often, but here this is thus Vedanta Vignana Sunishchitartha. So that's one thing. Okay, then Sannyasa Yoga. All these Sanskrit words are very important actually. This is why the whole language is used in Vedanta. That, as I've mentioned, many of you know this by now, that the etymology of the words in Sanskrit is very crucial because it's all self-contained, self-defining. So the word Vijnanam, Sunishchitat, even the word Vedanta, Vedanta means Vedasya Antaha. Antaha is not the physical end, but the essence of it. What is left behind when everything else goes. It's kind of like, the ashes on the forehead. And the ash represents the essence of things. When you burn everything, and what remains is the essence. So that's called Vedanta. So Vedasya Antaha doesn't mean that it is at the last chapter. That's not the case. It's all over. Sometimes in the beginning, sometimes in the middle, sometimes in the end. But what it represents is what remains is the Vedanta. So all words are self-contained and self-defining. So similarly is the word sannyasa. This word sannyasa we will also unfold a little bit. I'm actually violating my own principle where I was going to explain just the word meaning but not the overall sense of it, but I'm also giving you the overall sense. So maybe I should just go back and then finish all the general meaning, and then I will go into maybe so I should do that. So I will withhold on explaining the word sannyasa, but let's just do the entire thing. Sannyasa Yogat means by total renunciation. Good translation by Swamiji. By total renunciation. So that's the word samyak nyasaha. It is sannyasaha. Total renunciation. Then yatayaha, the seekers, yatis. And I think we explained that word previously. Yatnashilaha, one who are of the nature of becoming focused on the work, called Yatnashila, and we'll go back to that later on. Yataya Shuddha Sattvaha. Shuddha Sattvaha means ones who are pure-minded, whose thinking is straight. They don't have any kinks in their thinking. It's very, very, these days the word that is used is transparent. So it's not one thing, you say one thing and you do something else, but what you meant to do is what you meant to say, how you think. This is what called Shuddha Sattva, purity, pure-minded ones. They, interesting, isn't it? That the word they is Sanskrit and the English word is they. I wonder which one came first. Really Sanskrit is the mother tongue of all Indo-European languages. So te, Brahmalokeshu. A lot to be said about this. Brahmalokeshu means in the abode of Brahman. So we will see what the abode of Brahma means. Means the place where the Brahman is. Parantakale, at the time of death. Paramritaha, Paramritaha, being absolute and immortal. Parimuchyante, they are totally freed. Sarvehe, all of them. So now we can just see the sentence. The pure-minded seekers who by total renunciation have well ascertained knowledge of the Upanishads, being absolute and immortal, are all at the time of death totally freed in the abode that is Brahman. That's a sentence. Vedanta Vignam Sunishchitarthaha Sannyasa Yogat Yataya Shuddha Sattvaha Te Brahma Lokeshu Parantakale Paramritaha Parimucyanti Sarve. You can even redo the sentence if you like. You can say, so I'm just doing it in Sanskritam for a minute. Ye yatayaha. So I'm adding the word ye. Those. Which ones? Shuddha sattvaha yatayaha. The ones who are pure-minded yatis. Te Vedanta Vignana Sunichitarthaha Sannyasa Yogat. Parantakale Brahmalokeshu Paramritaha Parimuchyanti Sarve. Something like that. You can rearrange it. Where this means that those pure-minded seekers who have total renunciation, and you can use the word and, have the well ascertained knowledge. So they're both are necessary. So that sentence doesn't make it clear, because who by total renunciation have well ascertained knowledge of the Upanishads. Yes, in a way that the wellness of the ascertainment will not come until you have renunciation. That's really is a good point. But still there are two separate things. So this is what would be called Viveka and Varagya. So Viveka would be well ascertained knowledge of the Upanishads, and Vairagya means lead to renunciation of useless things. So those pure-minded seekers who by total renunciation have well ascertained knowledge of the Upanishads, and then already being the absolute and immortal, they are not going to acquire immortality, but being already immortal, that at the time of the fall of the body are now totally freed, and nothing but, they say, in the abode of the Brahman. We will see abode of the Brahman, but means that they keep their they understand their status as Brahman alone. That's the meaning of it. All right, so now that is the case, let us now go into the details. And so the first one is Vedanta Vignam. So here Swamiji says that we've already started to talk about that part of it. So Vignanam here means, one thing I mentioned is Vishesha Jnanam. So Swamiji explains that quite well. I've already gone over that part of it, that until you are able to lock in to an identification that this is my friend, that is the Vishesha Jnanam. The general knowledge was, Jnanam was that there is a person coming, human being coming. Because sometimes at a very distance, if there is even an animal coming, you are not able to distinguish very far away with sort of glimmering things and all those changes in the atmosphere that is preventing you from seeing something. Even an animal and a human being is indistinguishable. Could be a large dog. And pretty soon that gets resolved. No, it's not a dog. It is not Chatushpada. It is Dvipada. It is standing up. Okay, that's a human being. But then, still the general knowledge. But then, Vishesha Jnanam is the particular knowledge. And so what does it really mean? So let's look into that a little bit. This is an important thing to see. So what is said is that, so Vedanta is a Pramanam. So please make a note of this. This is and this is really more of an introductory thing for people that have already studied Vedanta. This may seem like a revision to them, which is fine. It's important to have a revision from time to time. But for those of you that are relatively new, then this is a good thing to grasp. What it is that Vedanta does not either create the knowledge about yourself or even reveal the knowledge about yourself in its generality. And if you look at the experience of ourselves, even a child knows that I am conscious. See, that's another one interesting thing. The word Pramanam means something which is a means of a new knowledge is called Pramanam. Means of a new knowledge which was not there previously is called Pramanam. Like for instance, if you came back and you said, hey, I saw such and such person on the street yesterday. Like, you say, I saw Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. I saw him yesterday on the street. Very unlikely, but it's very possible. It reminds me, it's interesting. When I first came to this country in 1964, and I was a student at Berkeley. I distinctly remember this so well. Oh my gosh. So one day I was walking in Berkeley. I used to live in this place called the I House, which was called the International House. And so if you didn't have a place to live on your own, then you could get a room on this, and you had to pay money for it. And money was so scarce at that time. I had to count every dollar. But I had no choice. This was a good place because food was served and it was nice. I stayed there for 6 months. That's all I could afford. After that, I had to get a place of my own, which I shared with somebody else. But I remember one time, I was just strolling outside this I House. It's a huge, beautiful building, right on the outskirts of California. When I saw a person walking that was surrounded with a retinue of people. There were about 4 or 5 people. And this person came up and he was just kind of like striding. He was going from one place to the other. And he stopped by, and a couple of the students recognized him and said hello. And he also stopped and said hello, shook hands. And then I was there, he shook my hands. And he says, hello, how are you? I said, fine, thank you. And I didn't know who that was. I had no knowledge, because it was some important person. Then he proceeded on. And I asked somebody, who is he? He says, don't you know him? He's the governor of California. It really happened to me. So he was the father of the younger Brown. And he was the governor of California. So this is exactly what happens, is that you have a particular knowledge that has to be given by someone. to say, I said, oh my gosh, even then I was not totally impressed. So he's a governor of California, what's the big deal? I mean, I was still an Indian in my thinking at that time. I was so fresh off the boat but it was kind of interesting, really. Governor of California, yeah, that's something. And so now I remember that I shook hands with the father of this. Brown was a very important person at that time. He made a number of changes to California, and his son did also. So like that, you can see that there is a recognition of something new that I did not know before. So this is what is called Pramanam. So supposing I have to tell this to someone. I was not married at that time and I didn't know who to, if I send it to my family, they'll say, oh, that's nice, you met the governor. But if I have to tell someone that I saw the governor of California yesterday, they will say, how do you know this? So there were two things involved. One is my eyes, and the other one is someone who reliably told me, because somebody could have jocularly tell me that he's the governor. But no, this was somebody who says, hey, you know who that is? Governor. And it matched because he had about 4 or 5 people. Not the same way now where you have this security. Life was very different at that time. You didn't have this security with guns and so on, but there were still some people protecting him at that time. So it all matched. So this is called Pramanam. So that I had the proof, ascertained proof that this is a person. Vedanta is a Pramanam. This is an important thing to see. What is the Pramanatvam? Why the Vedanta is a proof? Because it's saying something which is not known up until this time. So what is it saying? So let's understand what is it not saying. Vedanta doesn't say that you are a conscious person. Even a child knows this. And the Vedanta will never tell you something which you already know. It's not a recitation. It's something, this is what is called, technically called apurvata. Apurvata. Purvata means one which was there before. Apurvata means one which is not there before. For you and I. Something that I didn't know. So Vedanta, to be a Pramanam, must have apurvata. And so it cannot tell you that you are conscious, because I already know I'm conscious. So why would it repeat it? So it doesn't tell you that I am conscious. It doesn't tell me that I am. I am and I am conscious. I am means that I am alive, I'm there, I as a person. I know that already. What's the big deal? And it also doesn't tell me that I am the most important person in my life. I am the center of love and attention. I have love and attention to a number of things in my life. That person, that person, so on and so forth. That thing, this thing, etc. Car, houses, etc. Possessions, money. Out of them, I am most precious and I am the most important thing. This I know that already. I know that already. Because Swami Maheshananji had given this example. He says, suppose you are, he's giving the example of a woman who is very fond of jewelry, and her husband had given her a diamond ring that she's very proud of. It's got 5 carats and so on and so forth. And it's interesting, we in this society you meet people. There's a friend of ours, a woman that we know. She's very fond of her diamond. And how do you know that? Because she keeps looking at it every now and then. She look around, talk to people, and everybody knows this. So they'll say, oh, there she is, very fond of her. Anyway, so this woman was wearing a diamond ring. And so this guy walks up to her with a revolver in his hand and said, "Lady, you better give me this ring." So she said, no, you cannot. This is the most precious thing for me. "Lady, are you listening to me or not? I want to get that ring from your finger." And she started, "No, she says, it's my final word. You're either giving me this ring dead or alive. You want to be dead or you want to just give me the ring?" So her husband was there next to him. She says, "Just give it to him." And she immediately agrees, yeah, my own life is more precious than the ring. So Vedanta doesn't tell you that you are the most precious. Doesn't tell you are alive. Doesn't tell you you are conscious. You are aware. Doesn't tell any of that. Those are the 3 things that are most important in my life. That this is the Satchidananda. That I am there, I am aware, and I love myself. So Vedanta cannot give you any information beyond what you already know. So then what is Vedanta? Why is it important for me? Aha! So this is the thing. It is important because there is one thing that I don't know. One thing that I am confused on. One thing that I take for granted that the Vedanta corrects for me. It makes a correction. So in making the correction, it does not create anything. Actually, it creates a lot without creating anything. That's the beauty. It doesn't create anything, it doesn't even reveal anything. Doesn't create, doesn't reveal. So what does it do? Without doing anything, it does a lot. What it does is to say, this is a really important thing to see. This is keep this in mind. A very crucial thing to see. In fact, in this definition of Brahman, definition of the self, Satyam Jnanam Anantam. So the word Anantam is crucial. Because what Vedanta does is to say that all conclusions about yourself that you already have are unlimited. I'm sorry, not all conclusions. All the conclusions that you have about yourself instead of being limited, are not limited. How? Because that I am, I know, but my definition of who I am is tinged with some inaccuracies, confusion. My beingness is limited by time, by place. I was born on such and such place and I'm going to die at a certain time. This is my beingness is very, very temporary. And it is not the case. Anantam, with respect to my beingness. Let's go to the second one. That I'm conscious. I decide that at night time I'm not conscious. And if I get hit by something, I become unconscious. So my consciousness is also dependent on different things. That's not the case. Because the consciousness is not limited by anything. Deep sleep does not limit me. Being hit by something also does not limit me. I may appear to lose consciousness, but I don't. So there is no limitation to my consciousness. Then the final thing about Anantam is that my sense of importance and love is also very vulnerable. Because I sometimes don't think highly of my own self. I don't like myself. I'm limited. I'm criticizing. I'm not happy. So my sense of well-being and happiness also is very conditional. That is not the case, Vedanta says. You're making a mistake. You're unhappy. You are the very source of happiness of the entire world. Not only for yourself. Anantam. So Satchidanandaha. So here Swami Dayananji also, he made this very clear. I remember this so well. He says that in all of these analyses, the word Anantam is the most important. Because, so this goes back to the Vishesha Jnanam, Vijnanam of Vedanta. So what is the particular thing that the Vedanta does? It does not reveal or create my sense of being knowledge, and my sense of liking myself. It doesn't, I already know that. But what it does is, it creates the antam. Any sense of limitation, it removes that. And it says, you're making a mistake. This is where the example, I think, of the limited space versus total space is so beautiful. That as a limited space, you have a certain personality, that I am the room space. And as a ascertained knowledge about I am a room space. So supposing if the space has consciousness, then I think this example becomes very relevant. So this is what is called Chida Kasha. Not just Akasha, which is space, but Chida Kasha. In fact, I think the meditation on myself as the very ocean of consciousness is a very beautiful, very important, very fruitful one. And hopefully we'll do that sometime, but just on yourself, think of yourself not just as a limited human being, but you are the very ocean of consciousness, isn't it? You are. It's not your consciousness or my consciousness, it is the consciousness, only one consciousness. And you are the whole ocean. Unlimited. So the word Anantam is the one that changes the very nature of the being of the person. Because as a room space, if it's Chida Kasha, then you can imagine how you define yourself. How you define yourself as being limited. How you define yourself as being vulnerable. You are insecure. You want to make sure that there's no earthquakes. And the way you look at yourself is totally different. You find that I'm cluttered. I don't want the clutter. I want a nice, and I want bigness. And I want decoration. And I want security. So as a room space, you have a completely different set of problems to deal with. And if somebody comes in and he says, why are you so worried about things? I don't understand. Why are you always complaining and you always worried about this, that or the other? He says, wouldn't you be? I don't understand why aren't you? You think I'm doing something wrong because I'm a room space and I want things to be nicely laid out. I want to make sure that I never get bothered by any problems, that the walls surrounding me are secure, they're not falling apart. What do you mean? Isn't that natural for me to do that? So he said, wait. Who do you think you are? Can you just tell me? He says, don't waste my time to asking me who am I, this, that or the other. And he says, no, but I want you to think. Tell me what's your nature? He says, I am a conscious person surrounded by these walls. You are a conscious person surrounded by walls that are not conscious? So you say, yes, that's exactly right. You got it. I'm a conscious person that is surrounded by inert things. So I'm Chaitanyam, I'm Chetana Vastu, and I am bound by Jada Vastu. So the other person says, okay, interesting. So that's what you think? He says, yes. Aren't you also thinking the same way? I don't understand why you even criticizing me. No, so he says, no, but I just want to go through this. So this is what you think, right? You're making a mistake. Because as a conscious person, you are unlimited. You are not conscious just now. You are the very nature of consciousness. Don't you see that? And I say as a room space, well, really, I kind of see it, but this is the thing. I kind of see it, but. So my sense of limitations create a doubt in me and they don't leave me right away. So I say, yeah. So the person says, think through it completely. Consciousness does not have any boundaries. It is not dependent on something else. It is not generated by, consciousness is not a result of something. It is not a karya. It is a vastu by itself, independent, self-existing, self-aware, unlimited. Don't you see, you are the Chida Kasha. It's the same Akasha. And then you say, yeah, you're right. You're right. So is it meaningful that the walls are limiting you? In fact, are you not unlimited and the walls are within you? And the Jadavastu, the inert thing, doesn't mean anything. That's just a show. Yeah. Yes. Is this really true? Yes. It's just a notion on your part that you are a room space. You're calling yourself a room space. Call whatever you want to about yourself. But to embellish it with all the problems that you are saying that your definition of who you are is totally faulty, because the walls are not limiting you. So what if the walls fall down? Does that really create any problems for the space? No, you're right. It doesn't create any problem for me. Don't you see that it is a much higher level than that of the walls? Yeah. So this kind of a dialogue that comes through. This is the contribution of Vedanta. This is the Vignanam, Vishesha Jnanam. So the knowledge of Vedanta as a Pramanam is not to create anything. It doesn't even reveal anything that you don't already know. It just reduces, not only reduces, it eliminates the wrong confusion. Not the wrong confusion, the confusion. Confusion by nature is wrong. It eliminates the confusion that I am a limited being by its teaching, by showing it to me. It doesn't create anything. I am myself under my spell of ignorance. And all Vedanta shows, it shows light on the darkness of my ignorance. That's it. That's all it does. And Sunishchitartha, here now Vijnanam and Sunishchita, all the things we discussed earlier, come into being. Because here's the real situation is that, this room space, the dialogue that I kind of created between somebody who is talking to the room space, that you are the total space. There's no difference. There's only one space. You can call it any one you like. You can call it the bathroom space, living room space, kitchen space, whatever space. But it's only one space. And so that dialogue requires some discussion, because it is not obvious. I'm so used to be acting as a room space. I mean, it's not just a matter of few days. 1,000,000 of years I've been taking myself in various lives. And all I understand is the law of limitations. That room spaces can be torn down, a new one can come up. There is clutter, non-clutter. There is a good smell, bad smell. And I'm associated with all those factors. That's how I define myself. That's how I'm worried. So it takes a while for those questions to be adequately answered. So this is the meaning of sunishchitartha, because there is a lot of doubts that come in the midst of this. Really? Yeah, what you're saying makes sense, but and I tell you, if you study Vedanta, then the teachers all say this. Swami Dayanand used to say that. Swami Maheshananji says it again and again, is that the biggest issue we have after we have studied the subject matter. So this is what the Shravanam and Mananam is. That Shravanam is also a complete understanding. But then you have to go to work to remove your doubts. And removing your doubts takes a while. And we are all very impatient. That how I should have known this. I don't understand why it's not working. So here's the thing, you see. It's like that person approaching, and that person takes supposing you take 10 minutes for that person to come in. Supposing you're looking at it far away, like half a mile away, you can see the person coming. But until the person comes close enough for you to lock in, there is doubts. Who is that person? Why is he coming? Is he coming from me? There's only 2 or 3 homes on this block. And the other people are not home. I'm alone. I wonder if I'm safe. All kinds of thoughts come in. So these are all doubts that one has. So all these doubts can be reverberating in my mind about, so Vedanta says that I'm free, but I'm not sure because, why do I still act that way? Why it's not clear to me? This is where clearing of the doubts by all the acharyas says is our main. Once you understand everything, you have a pleasure, you should have the pleasure of slowly taking away doubts from yourself. That's when you become sunishchitartha. Vedanta Vignam sunishchitartha. You become totally clear about the subject matter. Because what happens is that in that example of the room space versus total space, the promise that I am free seems intriguing. but my old ascertainment of what I am and who I am predominate. And hold me from really understanding the true implications of freedom. And I just have to work at it. Or I can just say, I don't know, I need to do something else. This is not doing. So Vedanta says, please, please, please. You are free to do what you want to. But please, this is the phenomena. You have to go through a lifetime of clearing doubts. Because if you do that, it's amazing what you will do to yourself. So do it. Just be totally involved in removing doubts about the veracity of the truth about yourself. If you don't know the truth about yourself, that's a different matter. Then you have to inquire. But once you know it, that's just the beginning. Now you have to create, you have to remove, or not create, but you have to remove the doubts about it. So anyway, I think I'll stop because then the next topic we will take up is the Sannyasa Yoga Yataya Shuddha Sattvaha. So that I think would be good to look at as a subtopic. So the first subtopic was Vedanta Vignam Sunishchitartha. So I think we spent some time explaining that, and then we'll look into the other aspects of it. We'll continue with that. Just to kind of think for the next few weeks. As you know, the next week we will not have a class. Instead, we are going to have a satsang on Zoom starting at 8:30 in the morning, California time. And students of all the 3 classes are welcome. You already saw my email. And so we will have an occasion to discuss any of the topics that be on your mind. And so I look forward to that. Then the next couple of weeks are somewhat uncertain for me because there is a number of family events coming up, perhaps even involving some travel on our part. So it's very possible that we may not have a class for 1 or 2 weeks after that. And so after Thanksgiving, then we will rejoin. So there will be a little bit of a gap between now and then. But let me go through all the details of it and make sure that my dates are firm, and then I will let you know about about when we will meet again to continue on this verse number 4. So we will do so. So with that, let me close the class with a prayer and then see if you have any questions. Om Asato Ma Satkamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Good to see you all. All right, I don't see any questions, so hopefully I will see you at the satsang next week with at 8:30 on the Zoom. Okay? All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.